Welcome to the podcast All About Your Money by Bonk Raiffeisen. This is where we break it all down, simple, clear and straight to the point. We talk saving, investing and everything in between, always in the context of your everyday life. A podcast for everyone who wants to take control of their finances, because at the end of the day, it's all about your money. And with that, welcome to episode 2. Last time we created a bit of an overview of our personal finances, but this time we talk more about the psychological aspect of it, because money is not only a topic that's rational, but also an emotional one. And for that, I have a very special guest with me today. Angélica Mendes, welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
To give a bit of context, you're a neuropsychologist originally from Venezuela, and you're currently completing your PhD here in Luxembourg. And it's about behavioral decision making, right?
That's true, yes.
Could you a bit elaborate on what that means, maybe in a bit more simple terms?
Of course. So I'm researching decision making when we have a difficult situation in front of us, in the term that it brings both reward and also cost. So I'm investigating individual difference on how some people are more likely to approach this type of situation and some people are more likely to avoid it. And what are the brain mechanisms that are behind this?
So why we behave in a certain way, maybe even though it's not logical or rational.
Exactly.
So I think finances are a great topic in that aspect. I know it for myself, and I hope and think I'm not the only one. Example from my personal life, I bought a coffee machine for work and it's there. I even have my cute little coffee mug. I got the milk that I love, the whole shebang. But I still every single day go next door to buy my coffee, like for €3. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it kind of adds up if you get a coffee for €3 every single day. Can you maybe explain to me, because I honestly, in rational terms, can't explain it to myself why I do it. But can you maybe explain to me what happens on a neuroscientific level, maybe in my brain, why I choose to spend that money, even though I know that I should probably not or could avoid doing it?
It's very important what you were saying, that we are not only rational beings, but we are also emotional beings. And sometimes we have the perfect plan on how to behave, but then we also have habits, we have impulses, we have mental shortcuts, and we have to take all into account. So traditional economic models suppose that people will behave in the most rational way and will bring the most rational financial outcome. But in fact, this is not what happened. They can explain it with a theory called ultimatum game, where you have two people playing a game where they have to divide an equal sum of money. And you have a proposer and a responder. So the proposer can decide how to split the money. And the responder can say either if he accepts the offer or if he rejects it. And if he rejects the offer, then none of them have any money.
Okay.
So if you go by the most logical financial decision, it will be to accept any offer that is greater than 0. So even if the other person offers you €1, this will be still more money than having 0.
Yeah.
So this will be the most logical financial decision. But what happens in reality is that in this experiment, people were rejecting offers that they consider unfair. So this is how you see that we don't often take the most logical decision, but we take other things into account. In this case, it was fairness. But for example, when you say about the coffee, it can be other things, like you're buying, for example, a lifestyle with that. You're picturing yourself walking with your coffee, or maybe you are buying some emotional regulation technique because you are very tired from your morning.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you need some space to clear your head. So it also can be situational, depending on how you're feeling. So you have to take into account many things, not only rationality, when we make decisions.
Absolutely. I do feel quite fancy with my little coffee cup, I have to say, even though I love my mug. But yeah, it plays a role. That makes quite a lot of sense, yeah. I think another aspect of that is not only to like our expenses, but also the saving. Like we all know that we should be saving money. Like we hear it all the time, but we don't always do it. What would you say, why is it easier for us to maybe spend money, even though we know that it would be better to save it?
We don't save not because we don't see the benefits of it, but we don't save because we see it as something costly, because we need to invest some time into understanding what are we spending our money in, into understanding how to organize it better, and to understanding how much to put aside and how to do it. So this takes both time and energy. So why is it easier for us to spend money? Is because I will say two things. When we spend money, we get an immediate reward. So we are getting something that we want right away. While we save money, we can see it as a loss in a way, because we have money in our account and suddenly we don't have it anymore there. So we don't get the immediate reward. It's a reward that is long term. And the other thing that why we also it's easier to save than to spend is because of modern society, how it's designed, is to make buying just a click away.
Yeah, it's very easy.
It's very easy. Now with the contactless, many people have their wallets on their phone. They don't even have to look for their credit card. While for saving, you need to open your bank account, put your password, do the double authentication. All of these things take effort and time, and it's not so straightforward.
And you have a lot more time to reflect on it. Do I really want to do this? While just swiping your card,
it's an easy act. In fact, about reflecting, there is also an experiment that showed that when people have to put effort into something, they just simply avoid it. For example, they were asking participants to fill a form to sign into activity, and only 30% of participants fill the form. But when they change it around and they say, okay, now you have to sign the form to opt out of the activity, participation increased from 30% to 90%.
Jesus.
Just because they were avoiding not the activity per se, but filling in the form. That was the procedure to do it.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Is there a way to maybe like trick our brain and like from this whole like quick reward dopamine hit that we get from doing something that we don't actually need maybe, or that's not
or
as
enjoy,
logical,
yes,
versus something that's like more long-term investment in ourselves? Is there a way to break the vicious cycle of maybe taking irrational decisions with our money, even though we know what would be best?
A good way of doing that is making the process rewarding, the process of saving, not only thinking about your goal, your final goal, because whenever the brain is allowing itself to release dopamine is the messenger of that expects something good to happen, then it gets released and you feel good about it. If your brain only releases dopamine when you get the final outcome, then it will be very hard for you to start. So the idea is to make your brain release dopamine in the process, and you can make this by rewarding yourself, having internal conversations with yourself and seeing all the steps that you have done so far and how rewarding all the effort you have put in is for you. This is a very good way to change your perspective and narrative about saving. And if internal motivation is not enough, you can also have some external incentives, like, okay, instead of having the bigger goal in mind, you can break it down in smaller goals, and every time you reach them, you can buy something small for you that you like and reward this little progress.
A coffee,
for
example.
Yes.
So would you say that, for example, like imagining myself in a situation in the long-term future that I strive towards would help me? Like I'm a lot on social media and I see always like in this whole self-discovery and wellness bubble that they say, do it for your future self, you know? Like if I imagine 70-year-old Valeria on a beach sipping on my pina colada, would that help maybe to release that dopamine in advance?
Yes, this is a very successful strategy. In fact, there's research showing that just vividly imagine a situation can activate the same brain areas than experiencing it.
That's amazing.
That's very powerful. So visualizing and having the reward or the goal you have in mind can actually be rewarding itself.
A lot of people, I think one of the main issues is as well that people kind of dodge the topic of finances as well. We even talked about it as well briefly in our first episode, and we were saying that a lot of people, it seems to be like a social construct as well, that like talking about finances is maybe not it, or people are scared of thinking about it. Would you say that that's more of an issue of not knowing better, or really like a behavioral issue?
It's mainly a behavioral issue, because people often procrastinate or move for later the fact of dealing with their finances in the moment. And they do this not because dealing with them is uncomfortable per se, but what is really uncomfortable is the feeling that you get when you're dealing with them. Because some people might feel like they don't have enough knowledge to deal with them, or because they might look some numbers that they thought they will look better, for example, and then this will make them feel uncomfortable, and this is what might stop them for actually dealing with their finances.
So like feeling behind, for example.
Yes, but the funny way of this is that the way to make you feel better is actually sitting in front and dealing with them.
Yeah.
Having this, just understanding that this feeling is not completely true, and that just by making a few behavioral steps, you can start saving, because it's not about financial knowledge, it's just about behavior.
What would you say are like small behavioral changes we can do to make it a bit more easygoing in an everyday setting generally to deal with finances?
Well, talking about how it can be effortful, I think one good way is automatizing savings, so you don't have to go in every time to the platform and invest some time into saving. Also, what helps a lot is not having the money that you will spend and the money that you will save in the same account, because it's been shown that people that have available the money, they will spend it more. Just because the feeling that you have it and it's yours, and then you can spend it. So it's good to separate this.
Okay.
Another important advice that has been shown is that people that have cash, they tend to spend less than people that don't that have it electronically. And this is why, because in cash you can really feel the amount of money you have, and when you spend it, you feel it like a loss in a way, because you see it decreasing. So I know that in modern economy it's hard to have cash, but this is an advice that I can give is people to go more often into the bank account and see the numbers.
Yeah, to do the unpleasant thing maybe a bit more often. That's also something we talked about in the first episode too. The more you do it, the less frightening it becomes as well.
Exactly.
To take that
first
kind
step.
The first step is always the hardest. I think it's like that with everything. And also, what would you say is like the easiest way to stop spending money on unnecessary things? I'll call it unnecessary because I do truly believe that my coffee spending habits, for example, that if we get back to that one, are pretty unnecessary, considering I have everything I need to get my coffee.
I would say it's important then to identify the feeling that is providing you. So what are you feeling when you are getting this coffee? And therefore try to replace it with something that doesn't necessarily cost money. If it's about social connection, if it's about emotion regulation, what is this coffee making for you? Because you don't make actions that don't get you a reward. So this is rewarding in a way. And therefore, if your objective is to stop spending money in this, I would say you need to find a way to keep having this reward in other ways.
So to briefly recap, what would you say is like one thing we could do today, like the first step to make better decisions?
I think it's important to be aware of your goal. Because, for example, when you take your car, you don't drive aimlessly, right?
Yeah.
You have a direction, a destination you want to arrive, and that's why you drive, because of your destination. So you need to have a goal in order to motivate yourself. And second of all, you need to be aware of your current behavior to be able to change it in the future.
That's really good advice. Angélica, thank you so much for all of your advice. And before I let you go for today, I have one last question, a personal one. What's the best financial advice you have ever received that you still live by?
Oh, that's a
tough cookie.
That's a tough question. I think the best financial advice is not restricting yourself completely, but allocating budgets for different things. In this case, having a fun budget has been very important for me, because it's not about all or nothing, but about how you find a balance and how you regulate.
I think balance is a really good word for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for today on the behavioral science of decision making. Join us on our journey of managing your personal finances in the upcoming episodes. A new episode drops every month, available on all major streaming platforms and also on YouTube. Thank you for listening and for watching. It's great to have you with us. See you next time on All About Your Money, the podcast by Bonk Raiffeisen.